listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
All right, there's no human being on the planet I'd rather be talking to right now more than John DeMarsico. That's a fact. John, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah. This is something that I really, really wanted to dive into. First of all, congratulations on everything. I mean, just being around ballparks, being around media. To me, John, it's like one of the things is when you find somebody who's creative and who does things a little bit different and excels at it in this sort of world, and this world where it's just nonstop. We're going and going, and sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees. I mean,
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Totally. Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for the kind words. We try to have a little fun every night at 7:00 when folks tune into SNY to watch the Mets. But yeah, it's there's a certain way that people are used to consuming a product. I mean, baseball on television has more or less looked the same for the last, 50, 60 years. And so there's, on the surface, there's very little that you can do to sort of embellish the game. But our goal every single night at SNY, and it started with the people that were there before me and our producer, Greg Picker, is always to inform and entertain. And we take that entertainment seriously. Every night when we come to the ballpark, we know that people have a choice at 7:00 of what they want to do. There's Netflix, there's streaming, everything is at our fingertips. And, in some cases, baseball has become a second screen experience for people too on their phones. And so we're trying to put ourselves ahead of the norm and kind of really jar people out of their seats once in a while when it comes to embellishing the game and making a game more of an event.
Man, you just as you're talking, there was 50 things I want to talk to you about. Honestly, because I love talking about this subject. John, I did back in 2000, old man yelling clouds, but back in 2012, it was back in 2012. I had done stuff for Nassing. And they called me one day and said, "Hey, do you want to do the broadcast with Don Arcillo? Jerry Remy was sick." I said, "Sure." And I sit in the seat, and I'm expecting sort of this crash course, this 2-hour prep, and it was literally sitting in the seat and then going. And when I'm sort of going through a lot of stuff that you've done and you're doing and everything else. I learned a lot because I was probably terrible. And I think I felt in my mind I was being paid by the word. So, but my point is that I go back to that moment and I think about, in that time, it was great Russ Ken who was sort of directing this, and thinking about how he must have been sort of bobbing and weaving his way through it. And so I say all this with the question to you. How much has it changed? How much has it changed for you? And I know that you jumped into this role in 2020, right? But
yeah,
this is I still, and I've done some broadcasts since then, but I've always gone in. I'm going to fill my head full of information, and I'm just going to talk like I would talk to somebody on the couch. And I feel like that maybe leaning into it more than even it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
Because of attention spans.
Yeah,
that's a terrible question and a very self-serving of saying that I did a broadcast back then. But my point is that I just look at it through the prism of that guy then and what I see now. How has it changed?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to attention spans. I mean, we're all guilty of being on our devices and kind of getting lost in a screen. And even though folks are watching baseball on a screen, I feel like you don't want the broadcast to get lost in the mesh, in the black mirror of all of the screens that surround us. You want baseball to be something that you sit down to and you watch, not something in the background, not something that is passive. You want to engage the viewer. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. You talked about being on the broadcast. Our producer, Greg Picker, when he coaches play-by-play people or analysts that are green, that people, obviously we have Gary, Keith, and Ron, who are veterans. They've been together for 20 years. But when someone new comes onto the show, whether it be a Daniel Murphy or a Jerry Blevins or Todd Zeal or Steve Gelbs, when he fills in play-by-play, he always tells them, when you speak, say something. If you're going to say something, make sure that there is some content behind it, and it's adding to the broadcast in a way. In a world where there's a pitch clock now, and there is less real estate to get words in, when you speak, say something. And I try to bring that to the visual side, because I'm speaking in pictures. When I take a shot, have it convey something, whether it be in an entertainment fashion or a scholastic fashion, or just a shot to remind people that they should be watching the game and not on their device.
That's so well said. And I think a lot of what you said is instincts, right? Instincts of what's too long. Where are we going to lose the viewer? Where are we going to get the viewer? And there's no better case of instincts. And, as we're taping this, what you did with calling the home run, when it came to, getting, was it Lindor, right?
Yeah. Well, last night it was Pete
Alonso.
He had a full count, and there were a few celebrities in the stands, and so once in a while you want to take a chance and isolate a celebrity, and you can try to get a reaction to a big moment. We got lucky with Tom Hanks last night. Apatow was also in the seats. Told our camera, "Hey, can you go shoot Judd Apatow and get his reaction for this home run?" Sometimes you just get a feeling. You've watched enough games, and thousands and thousands of games, and Met fans know the same. You just get that feeling. You've seen the at bat. Alonso was in like a 7 or 8 pitch at bat. He'd seen everything the guy thrown, full count. You just get a feeling that it's going to be a home run. I said, go get his reaction for this home run. Next pitch, boom, home run. And sometimes you get lucky, but it is instincts too.
But it's an instinct. But what a rush, man! Like what a rush when the instincts do take over. And I was going back and watching the Edwin Diaz. Obviously you made your mark with that entrance music, and going back and watching that video. And in case people forget, the Timmy Trumpet's like walking in with the camera behind him, and then swirling around to the mound, but catching the moment. And as that is unfolding, and that was sort of newish, right? I mean, John, like
it had been a while, but since it became the norm. When Mariano, when he came into Metallica, you would see it once in a while, maybe in a postseason game, All-Star game. Mariano's last All-Star game, I think, was at Citi Field. Actually, they showed him coming in. That would have been 2012 or 13. But it was a rarity to ever see that, for sure. Yeah.
And so when you're executing that, and they're showing you in the booth, and the music's playing, and you're directing it, and it's lining up perfectly. And what I'm thinking from your perspective is lower the heart rate. The adrenaline must be, as it's going on, you're like, boom, 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 it's hitting. I mean, can you explain, whether it's that moment or whether it's like the Judd Apatow moment or whatever it is, when it just lines up and it clicks, about the rush that you get in there? Or is there a rush, or is it just, okay, we're moving on, shot here? What's that like?
You try to keep to stay pretty even throughout the event, because when your voice gets elevated, everybody else that you're working with, because I'm not working alone, I'm surrounded by 40 technicians working around me doing their thing, and so you don't want to elevate too much. But in moments like that, it's hard not to get caught up in the moment. But when you're surrounded by such talented camera people and audio people, video people, replay, it's when all of those cogs are clicking, it's a magical thing going on in that truck. And when I post these videos, I'm glad people get to hear me and sort of a glimpse into how the sausage is made. But when you're in that moment and the announcers in the booth are doing their thing and we're doing our thing in the truck and the cameras are nailing their shots and the audio guys have the ambiance in the ballpark cranked up, you really start to levitate in the truck. It feels like that truck, and it's really is. We're in an actual truck. It feels like those four wheels are coming off the ground sometimes, and it's a special thing. And you get caught up in. There are certain moments over the course of a season. You may not get many of them, but in 2022, that game where we did Edwin Diaz's entrance, and that same game was also the Jacob deGrom taking the field to Simple Man. You kind of catch lightning in a bottle, and you don't know when the moment's going to come, but if you have the people in place and if we're in our home truck with our home crew, we're prepared for those moments. And you really just, you bathe in them. And sometimes you don't really know until after the fact. You go, wow, that was really cool. And I don't even know what it looks like until I go back and watch it back because you're so caught up in the moment, you know?
What's the best compliment you've got? Because it's probably, I don't know if it's from someone inside the industry or maybe it's, who knows, like Tom Hanks said, hey man, that was awesome how you showed me. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's, just generally speaking, because I am trying some kind of funky, wacky things sometimes. And the reception has been like 99% just overly positive from not only Mets fans, just from baseball people. And that's a great feeling to know that like people are just excited to see, a baseball broadcast trying new things. And a lot of people are really into the stuff, so it's honestly, it's transcending just baseball too. Every year I'm asked to do an event at the Museum of the Moving Image here in Queens, which is it's a film museum. And I do an event at their beautiful movie theater, and they sell hundreds of tickets, and it's really a celebration of baseball and cinema. And it's sort of that recognition that I really appreciate kind of the most, because I got the Mets fans. Mets fans are so proud of this broadcast, whether it be the three guys in the booth, we're doing in the truck. But when it sort of transcends fans and fandom to something more, whether it be the stuff at in the film world or this thing, which is sort of become pop culture phenomenon rather than just a baseball Mets centric thing. It's that kind of stuff that makes me kind of step back and say, whoa, this is pretty cool.
What has been the acceptance, or what was the acceptance when you wanted to sort of start going down this path from the people who you have to answer to,
Mm-hmm.
and B, I also know like how media is, like you can't do that, or can't do that, or can't do that. So what was the acceptance like, and has that changed over the last few years?
It all started with my predecessor, Bill Webb. He was SNY's first director starting in 2006 until his untimely death in 2017. But Bill was the first like rock star director. He directed the World Series on Fox from their first year until his passing. Every All-Star game. If there was a big baseball moment, it was Bill calling the shots. And when Bill got to SNY, he was already that rock star. Broadcast Hall of Famer, legend, TV titan. And so he got to kind of do what he wanted. Like he took a lot of chances. He had his camera crew in place that he'd been working with for literal decades. And so he was able to kind of write the script every night. And I got to watch that from behind him in graphics, in the graphics PA position every single night. And so he laid the groundwork for taking the chances and not having, too many things holding you back. And I sort of ran with it. And our producer, Greg Picker, he has a really great philosophy when it comes to this stuff. It's like he says, if we put talented people in their positions, you really kind of have to let them go. And because you don't want to put restraints on creative people, because then you're not going to get anything special. And so he allows us to take the chances, whether it be me directing, our associate director, Eddie Warman, cutting a really funky tease or a package, or our graphics people coming up with all the funny stuff and ambitious things that they do. You really allows us to take chances. And that's how you get the gold. You can't get the gold if you put restraints on people.
So good. It's so good. And it also is like inspiring. Like, again, I'll come back to it. I'm sorry. Like we're all in this world of a baseball season.
Yeah.
It can beat you down, man. Like it can beat you down, but to have moments, to have inspiration, and you're
Hmm.
inspiring me right now, to be perfectly honest with you. Let's go. But what so I two pieces of your foundation. Number one, the foundation of loving baseball. Number two, the foundation of loving cinema. Question that we ask a lot of people are like, you remember the first time you walked into a major league ballpark? And the consistent theme is, oh, the green are never greener, the whites are never whiter.
Hmm.
Do you remember your first time? If you don't, that's okay too. Maybe it was
Yeah.
one of your first times.
Yeah. So I grew up actually in North Carolina to New York transplants. So I grew up a Mets fan, but in North Carolina, and the closest ballpark to us was at Turner Field in Atlanta. So every year we'd go once every year when the Mets came to Atlanta for a series. And so my first big league memories are at Turner Field, watching the Mets in the late '90s, early 2000s, which was it was a great run, a great time to be a Mets fan. But that place, I have PTSD from the tomahawk chop, and I have PTSD from Crazy Train Chipper Jones walk up song. Um, it wasn't easy growing up in the quote unquote South as a Mets fan. So a lot of my memories are of a sea of red tomahawks chopping around me and me cheering for Mike Piazza and Joe McEwing and Todd Pratt, Robin Ventura, those guys. So that is for better or worse my first baseball memory. I didn't get to Shea Stadium until I was 19 years old. So I took a trip to New York when I was 19, and that was actually my first trip to Shea Stadium. I'll never forget getting on the 7 train and seeing that big blue stadium come into view, looking out the window, and that honestly is probably a more vivid memory, specifically my first
Awesome.
game at Shea
But
Stadium.
that's
Yeah.
like 19 years old. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 5 or you're 19.
Yeah.
And also this links up with the medium of television, because all you knew was what you saw, right?
Hmm.
I remember when I was young and I interned at Nesson, and I got a chance to step on the Fenway Park field for the first time. I can't explain it, like how that felt, because, and I guess it was because that was something I saw. That was like the Wizard of Oz. I mean, that wasn't real. And it's
Hmm.
probably the same way when you're driving up to Shea, right?
Totally, totally. Those places like Fenway Park and Wrigley Field are still magical. They're the only ballparks where I make an effort every single time to make sure I, at least for one day, watch batting practice on the field. I'm so lucky to get the chance to have the access that I do, and I rarely take advantage of it because you get into the grind of the season and you have your own work to do. But at Fenway and Wrigley, I will be out there at least one game to watch batting practice on the field, because there's nothing like standing out on that field and looking around you and seeing this place that you've only seen in the movies. Almost, it's like that feeling.
Awesome. And so now the cinema. What made you fall in love with cinema? Was there a movie? Was there a director? Was there an actor? What made you fall in love with it?
I've always, since I was a little kid and I was wearing out that Ghostbusters VHS and Ninja Turtles and even the Wizard of Oz. My grandmother babysat us every Saturday, and she had a big closet full of VHS tapes, and I would just be in heaven. Go open that closet door and look at the movies and look at the covers and watch the movies on a loop. And you just fell in love with it. And I'm a collector to this day. I collect Blu-rays, 4Ks, and DVDs. Even I have a collection of probably 3,000 movies, and it's something about tangibly holding the movie and owning it that I just really I get a rush from. The medium itself it's always meant a lot to me. I studied film in college, so you kind of learn the nuts and bolts and the history and the theory and the philosophy. And I didn't know I would kind of be able to take that stuff with me into my next job. I originally thought I might want to be a film editor and wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And, when I walked into the TV truck for the first time as an SNY intern in 2009, I really saw that you could apply these film techniques that I learned in college to this totally separate medium that I had no idea even really existed. So it was just kind of a perfect mesh of my interests. I didn't necessarily, when I got promoted to the director position in this off season of 2019, and then we had that awful COVID 2020 season, I didn't necessarily think that I would bring those techniques to the everyday nitty gritty of directing baseball, but I couldn't deny the bedrock and foundational knowledge of all of this stuff that I had my entire life impacting every cut that I took. And once I started seeing those magic moments happen, you take more chances, and you talk to people and see what they like. I have an amazing crew who has been so open to all of the things that we're trying, and it's exciting for them too, because we really push each other to get the next great shot or the next great edit or transition, whatever it might be, and it becomes a collaborative thing too.
One of the other things that keeps coming up when we talk to people about baseball and the importance of baseball, this actually stemmed from the commissioner when our good friend Joe Kelly interviewed him, and the commissioner said, "Listen, it's inarguable that baseball is the best sporting event to go to. It's the best sporting event to go to, and because there's a lot of reasons. You sit there, something happens, you talk, you experience, and I don't think there's any question. The challenge is to make baseball, as you point out, it's like to make people understand that, right? And I think that's what you're doing. I think that you're doing exactly that, and I got a feeling like you have that same mindset. Like, you have to understand how awesome it is to go to a baseball game. And yes, football's made for TV, basketball's made for TV, but you are making baseball made for TV. And through that prism, and that's what I think you're doing. I don't know if that's of your mindset or not.
I think you have to love the game to be good at broadcasting the game. It's when it's game 135 and the team's under 500, they're 20 games out, and we've had a lot of those summers on SNY throughout the years. It becomes difficult, but every day you still have a job to do. There's still an audience watching, and if you don't love the game, it's hard to do your job well. And I think everybody at SNY deep down loves the game. And as far as the actual broadcast itself, you're trying to serve many audiences. The natural ebbs and flows of baseball, very poetic, but there's also an audience out there that is more interested in a deeply analytic broadcast. There are some people that like the human interest stuff that we bring. Some people that just want to stick to baseball. There's some people that like the dramatic flourishes that I may do, and there's some people that don't. And so you try to serve many audiences. I myself am more into the poetry and the ebbs and flows of baseball and the lore and the cinema, the inherent cinema of the game. But there's some people on our broadcast that bring a different angle, and so it's like we're never just going to be one thing. And over the course of 162 games, you don't want to be one thing. You want to be a lot of different things, and so that's what you're going to get every night at SNY.
All right. Well, you've been very generous with your time. Last thing, John, it's just, I don't even know if you can answer this. Like, what's next? I mean, do you sit in a dark room thinking, okay, I did this. This was cool. But what's the next thing we can do? Can we push the limit? Is there something that, like, hey, I've been thinking about this, but I got to ask permission. What's next?
Yeah. No, I have a lot of ideas written down and up here in my head. You just really have to listen to the game. The game is going to tell you everything you need. It's going to tell you when this makes sense. You don't want to force things on people or use things that don't make sense in the moment. The game will always dictate what we do as a broadcast. It's not going to ever be the other way around. It's our job to take those moments, not miss them, and bring them to the viewer in the most beautiful way possible. And that's a fun thing every single night to do.
Well, listen, I sincerely mean this, John. Like, you've inspired me. again, we get bogged down in a lot of this stuff, but you've been
Yeah.
smart. I love creativity, I love innovation, and you said it, educating, informing, entertaining, the whole ball of wax. So congratulations with everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.